Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Cyber Dragon deck profile. So I'm really excited to update this deck because this is a deck that I would definitely carry to a locals or a regionals to play around with this and even probably take a first place spot. This deck is a very competitive and very awesome deck, and I'm really excited that you have this old nostalgic monster actually still being able to compete to this day. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below. So we have some awesome rewards, you guys, like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month that you're a patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. So you got to play 3 copies of Cyber Dragon because it's the main boss monster of the entire deck, and it's what makes the entire deck work. And if your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, then you can special summon this card from your hand. This card has even made its own like term in Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's a Cyber Dragon of the deck when you can special summon it from your hand, and you don't have when your opponent has a monster and you don't, which is pretty cool. We then play a single copy of Cyber Dragon Veer. If you guys are familiar with Kage to Kage, this card's very similar to Kage to Kage. If all of your Cyber Dragon monsters that have Cyber Dragon in their name count as Cyber Dragons while on the field or in the graveyard. And if you normal summon or special summon a Cyber Dragon, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position, and then once per turn, you can only use this effect once. Per turn, each Cyber Dragon you control gains 500 attack and defense, which is also pretty good. Then we play, in my opinion, my favorite of all the Cyber Dragons, and that's Cyber Dragon Core. Cyber Dragon Core is really good because when it's normal summon, you get to add a Cyber Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand. And if your opponent controls a monster and you don't control a monster, then you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a Cyber Dragon monster from your deck, which is really good just to be able to get a Cyber Dragon from the deck onto your side of the field as quickly as possible. It's overall just a really, really awesome card. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Hertz. Cyber Dragon Hertz is a really, really good boss monster, or not a good boss monster, but it's a good monster to send to the graveyard to get its effects off. Because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add another Cyber Dragon from your deck to your deck or graveyard to your hand, which is really good to be able to just grab those cards from your graveyard to your hand. And if this card is special summoned, then you get to make its level 5 until the end phase of the turn, which you can only use either effect of this card once per turn, which is fine, but it's really, really good just to get those added abilities. We then play 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Nasher. Nasher is really good in this deck too. It's just a 2 of, though. I used to play this card as a 3 of, but I recently just bumped it down to 2 because I feel like it's fine at 2. It was clogging a little bit at 3, so I just bumped it down to 2. You can discard one other machine monster to special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is normal or special summon, then you get to target a machine monster with 2100 attack or defense in your graveyard and special summon it, but you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except machine monsters. It's a really good card, but it does take a little graveyard setup to get it out onto your side of the field, and it's really important to have something like a Cyber Dragon in your graveyard to be able to resolve this effect. We then play a single copy of Cyber Eltanen. Eltanen is good as a board wipe because it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by banishing all face-up light machine monsters from your side of the field and your graveyard. And then this card gains attack and defense equal to the number of banished cards that were used to summon this card times 500. So if you banish 5, you get 2,500. If you banish 6, you get 3,000. And it also has the ability that when this card is special summoned, you send all other face-up monsters on the field to the graveyard, which is good as just an additional board wipe. We then play 2 copies of Galaxy Soldier. Galaxy Soldier is good because it's like an additional Cyber Dragon. It helps you send cards from your hand to the graveyard, like your Hertz, to the graveyard to be able to activate Hertz's effect to get you a search, and then gets your copy of Galaxy Soldier on your side of the field, which will also search your second copy of Galaxy Soldier from your deck, which is really good just to get a level 5 on your side of the field. We play a single copy of Yugioh because it's searchable in the deck, and it's good to get out some monsters like your copy of Dragoons that your opponent might be playing. We're not playing Dragoons in this deck, but if your opponent's playing Dragoons, then the copy of Yugioh can totally clean up the board with that copy of Dragoons, because you can just tribute it off. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom just to handle our opponent's cards, and then 2 copies of Nibiru. The reason I actually bumped Nibiru in this deck is because this deck is a very going second deck. You never really want to go first in Cyber Dragons because your opponent won't have a monster on their side of the field. So if you go second and you open up Nibiru, then you contribute all your opponent's monsters, go ahead and break their board, and they'll have a Nibiru token on their side of the field, which is really good for your Cyber Dragons to be able to special summon themselves if you can deal with your own Nibiru token or your own Nibiru on your side of the field. If not, then you still have a 3,000 attack point monster. The pluses are better than not having it, because if you have Nibiru in your deck, it just helps you deal with opponents' problematic boards. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're playing a single copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is just a great extender in this deck. It helps out a lot to deal with our opponents, like board wipes. If they Nibiru us, we can bring back our monsters to our side of the field and just go off into different plays. One copy of Feather Duster. Feather Duster is really good in this deck because it just deals with our opponent's back row, because this is the only time that you really have a problem in this deck, is when you can't OTK your opponent because they have something in their back row that's going to cause you a problem. I totally side this out for a copy of like Upstart Goblin or something like that if you need to, but I like playing the one Feather Duster in this particular deck. You don't have to if you don't want to. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is just really helpful to stop hand traps. One copy of Foolish Burial. It sends Hurts from deck to graveyard, which is really nice. One copy of 1-for-1, which special summons Hurts from the deck, or Nasher from the deck, which is really helpful. One copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is super helpful in this deck as well, because you have cards like your Millenniumize Restrict that you can special summon from the extra deck and deal with your opponent's plays before they even happen. Because if they discard a hand trap when you activate your copy of Instant Fusion and you have Millenniumize Restrict on your side of the field while you're trying to get a search off, you can negate that card's effect and then keep going, and Millenniumize will gobble it up. We then play a single copy of Cyber Repair Plant, which is how we get out our Jizukiro. It's really easy to get this card out of the deck because you just normal summon your core and then you can search it. And it has the ability that if a Cyber Dragon's in your graveyard, you can activate one of these effects. And if you have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in your graveyard, then you can activate both effects. You either get to add a Light Machine monster from your deck to your hand, which can be Jizukiro, or a Cyber Dragon, or Hurts, or any of the ones that you particularly need, or target a Light Machine monster in your graveyard and shuffle that target into the deck to reuse it later. We play a single copy of Cyber Rev System for the last one of. Cyber Rev System is really good because it's essentially a Monster Reborn for Cyber Dragons, which is pretty good because it lets you special summon a Cyber Dragon from your hand or graveyard, and it cannot be destroyed by card effects for the rest of the turn. It is searchable, which is why we only play it as a one-of. Now, for the other spells we're playing in the deck, we're playing 2 copies of Overload Fusion. Overload Fusion is really good because it lets you summon out your copy of the Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon, which is amazing, which is also a level 5 monster. It's a really good card that helps you just summon that card out for really low cost because it lets you banish 2 Cyber Dragons from your graveyard to be able to summon out your copy of Rampage Dragon, which is super easy to summon in this deck. And plus, you can use your copy of Anaconda if you need to from the deck to be able to summon out your copy of Rampage Dragon. You just banish cards from your graveyard to summon a Dark Machine monster, which is how you always summon it. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. Cyber Emergency lets us add a Light Machine monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, or a Cyber Dragon monster from our deck to our hand, and if the activation of this card in its own possession is negated by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can discard a card and then add this card back to your hand, which can be beneficial to discard certain cards from our hand. We then play, since it's a Cyber Dragon deck, you got to play 3 Machine Duplication because there's a really crazy play with this deck. If you've never played Cyber Dragons before, if you have played Cyber Dragons before, then you realize this. If you haven't, that's totally cool. But all of your lower level Cyber Dragons, like your copy of Hurt and Core, count as Cyber Dragon while they're on the field. So if you say, for instance, have Core on your side of the field and you activate your Machine Duplication, you don't summon out 2 more Cores. You summon out 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. You just summon out 2 additional copies of Cyber Dragon to your side of the field, which is pretty good to help you get out an Infinity or get you out a Link play. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're playing 5 traps in this deck, and that is 2 copies of Cybernetic Overflow. I just think this card is just too good not to play as a 2 of. And then we play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. So Infinite Impermanence has Cyber Dragon Infinity on the card. You got to play it. And it's just an overall really good hand trap to deal with your opponent's stuff that they're activating. It's kind of like Effect Failure, but a little bit better, in my opinion. if you don't need the monster, and it's really good going first if you do get pushed to go first, or going second, I mean, because you can drop this on the first turn, because if you don't control any cards at all, then you can just drop this card from your hand to negate something. So it's kind of like an Ash Blossom almost effect and a actual hand trap. Then we play 2 copies of Cybernetic Overflow, which lets you banish Cyber Dragon monsters with different levels from your hand, face up from your field, and or your graveyard, and then you destroy equal number of cards on your opponent controls, and if this card is destroyed in your spell and trap card zone by a card effect, then you get to add a cyber spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good, especially with Harpy's Feather Duster running around. And you do play a 5, 2, 1, and 4 in the deck, so you'll get sometimes as many as 4 pops with the Cybernetic Overflow, which can help you out a lot in this deck. So that's it for the traps, guys, and the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're playing 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Infinity. Yes, we're playing both artworks, because why not? This card's really, really, really good. Basically, you can XZ summon this card on top of a copy of Cyber Dragon Nova for free, and it also gains 200 attack for each material attached to it, and then once per turn, you can target one face-up monster, attack position monster on the field, and attach it to this card as a material, and then once per turn, during either player's turn, when a card effect is activated, you can detach a material from this card and negate the activation if you do destroy it. So it just omni-negates anything. It can gobble up a card, and it's just an overall really, really good card. We then play 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Nova. Cyber Dragon Nova can detach a material from it to special summon a Cyber Dragon from your graveyard, which is really, really good. And if it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect, then you can special summon a fusion machine monster from your extra deck, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Constellar Pleiades. Pleiades is just basically here as an additional monster that you can summon onto your side of the field and bounce a card each turn. But you can only bounce 2 cards because it only has 2 materials. We then play a single copy of Chimera Tech Mega Fleet. Mega Fleet just gets rid of monsters in the extra monster zone by using a Cyber Dragon and using a monster on your opponent's or your side of the field, which is pretty good to just be able to bounce or destroy something or send it to graveyard off of a monster that's in the extra monster zone plus any Cyber Dragon, and comes out at 2,400 for every monster. For every monster sent to the graveyard, it gains 1,200 attack, so it automatically is going to come out at 2,400. We then play a single copy of Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Fortress Dragon's really helpful too. You summon it every so often if your opponent's playing light machine monsters, then you can send those to the graveyard, and it gains 1,000 attack for each monster sent to the graveyard for this material, which is really good. 2 copies of Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon for the last 2 Cyber Dragon Fusion cards. This card is really, really good at OTKing your opponent. A fusion summon this card can only be done with the fusion materials, which is 2 Cyber Dragon monsters, any 2 Cyber Dragon monsters. And then when this card is fusion summoned, you can target spells or traps up to the number of fusion materials used to fusion summon this card and destroy them. And then once per turn, you can send 2 Light Machine monsters, up to 2 Light Machine monsters from your deck to the graveyard. And if you do, this card can attack an additional time for each one sent. So you can attack up to 3 times, which is pretty good. We play a single copy of Millenniumizer Strict because it's our instant fusion target, which is super helpful. And then for the 5 Link monsters we play a single copy of Cyber Dragon Seeger. Seeger is just really good to be able to get on your field and make a Cyber Dragon go up to 42, and just helps get over so many problematic cards. Anaconda, because you can summon out Anaconda very, very, very easily in this deck, and summon out using a copy of your Overload Fusion from your deck if you don't draw into it, and use your copy of the Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon. 1 copy of Link Rebo, because you play plenty of level 1s in this deck. 1 copy of Alamirage, because you can normal summon out Core, and then send Core to graveyard with the copy of Alamirage once you've gotten your search off, if you want to go that route and you don't have machine duplication. And a single copy of Anima, because Anima is really good at gobbling up an opponent's monster, especially if you've already hit something with Millenniumize, and you can point to a monster, which is really, really, really good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I highly recommend you guys, if you haven't picked up Cyber Dragons before, you definitely should. It's a very, very good competitive deck. At least a rogue tier 2 deck. It always seems to be, to me, that they can't power creep Cyber Dragons. Like, it's always like tier 2 to tier 3. Like, it's just really, really, really good all the time. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. And don't forget to check out the Patreon for all those awesome rewards, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.